Mr. Adegborua, there's a very important issue with people obeying set rules. Are you comfortable with people who know for sure that these policies have been on the ground since 2015? In fact, there was a deadline in 2015, March of 2015, and this is 2017. In fact, some states have said if you do not have BVN, you do not have a salary to get from government. Are you comfortable with that kind of people? Out of these 46 million who are yet to obey that simple policy, do your BVN.
You must admit that about 60% of our population are illiterate. Businesswomen, marketwomen, farmers, traders in the localities who have no access to information, who are not even aware of this forfeiture order that will only be published in newspapers. So when you implement a policy, you must target your people. You must ensure that it's a policy that is implementable, that is practicable. For you to ask people to come to bank to put their hand on data capturing system, that's suppose that it will run a society that is literate. And the banks have not been able to reach the people in the hinterlands with this information. So you don't then roll back on me your incompetence.
But 2 years now, isn't that enough?
It can be for 10 years. We're talking about information, illiteracy. And that's one thing. The other point is this, we are running a federation. According to our constitution, Nigeria is a federation with 36 states, 1 federal capital territory, and state governors and federal government. Now, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation has no legal right to assert in law over the governor of a state or over the fund of a state under a federation. If Lagos State decides to keep its money in an account for 20 years without doing BVN, without operating an account, it is not the business of the Federal High Court. It is not the business of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation to interfere in the funds of Lagos State. Because my learned friend says all banks, all accounts.
So on that grounds again, the forfeiture order is wrong too.
Of course. Otherwise, we don't run a federation.
But are you concerned? Because if the intention is to cut down on fraudulent practices or fraudulent transactions, are you worried that some of these transactions involving money laundering will never be caught if these BVNs are not done?
No, Sheung. If you read our legislations, it's just that the banks observe these legislations in breach. Before you can deposit any amount exceeding 5 million naira, the banks ask you for particulars. How did you get the money? Who are you? Who sent you to come and deposit the money? And after getting those information, they're supposed to wire it directly to EFCC, to all the agencies for processing. This is the point we are making, that the incapacity of government to execute its own policy will not be a failure of Nigerians.
Isn't this one of the means to make that happen?
No. Look, assuming, for instance, and I say it's a policy of central bank, and central bank is a creation of statute with its own corporation soul, with its own juristic personality. It has the capacity to enforce its own policy. But in this particular case now, central bank is put as a defendant, 20th defendant. In other words, the AG is fighting central bank on his own policy that the Attorney General is purporting to be executing on behalf of an agency set up by law. And that is the incongruity. And for you to be able to go back to that court to report that your money is genuinely earned, you have to first of all be a party in the case. Because the court cannot hear you based on affidavit alone. 36 million Nigerians in one chilled court that is less than 12 by 12 meters in this country. We can't continue a nation like this, because in the past, just a few weeks ago, this same federal government obtained an ex parte order to proscribe an organization. We will get to a stage in this country when they will get ex parte order to take people's lives. And I hope that we won't get there.
Is something wrong with ex parte order?
Of course. The problem with ex parte order is that you don't use it for permanent purposes. And you ask him that question.
It's an interim order.
He said after 14 days.
Pending the hearing. If they hear the case and the court says no, do not.
There's no other hearing. The court says if after 14 days you do not come forward to justify why you have not obtained the BVN, you forfeit the money. Okay. 14 days.
What would you be suggesting, Mr.
My suggestion is this.
Mr. Adegborua,
the suggestion
in fighting corruption? Because BVN, like we know, perhaps maybe the information on what it involves biometrics, and it helps you to link all your account numbers, the BVN, all the account numbers that you have, and it also it's a metrics related to human characteristics. That means that there are distinct characteristics of every individual. You and I will never carry the same fingerprint, and so if you are looking at it from that point of view, because a lot of you lawyers always use technicalities to knock out some of these issues. What else would you say that the federal government should use, if they are not doing this, to fight these corrupt practices in the banking system?
Well, first of all, I must make the point. You create wealth as government. The primary purpose of government is the welfare of the people. Create wealth. Give opportunity for people to excel on your own. After you have done that, then start running after thieves and rats. You cannot create wealth. You want to steal from people, in quotes. You are not creating employment. Money that people have earned legitimately. You are looking for ways of scooping them and forfeiting them. And how many sums and money have been forfeited since this government came? No particulars. What is being done with the money, we don't know. Publish the names of the amount that you have recovered so far, we have no record. Then you want to pounce on farmers, pounce on students, pounce on innocent people.
Mr. Adebowale, what would you be suggesting?
My suggestion is
if you think that this is wrong.
This is where I'm going. My suggestion is this. If you want to fight corruption, start with the banks. Start with the agencies that enforce law, the EFCC, the police, and then go ahead to the agencies that interpret the law, the courts. Let everyone who owns money, who have not been able to link it to this BVN, you pass that money. The CBN has its own vault. The money can be transferred to the deposit or account of Central Bank of Nigeria, but not forfeited. Our quarrel is forfeiting, which means when your property is forfeited, you have lost the right over it, no matter the circumstance.
But it says that you can go to the court for
if you are aware, if you know about it. And I've told you that we run a population that is governed largely by literacy. And there are rich men, market women in villages. I can tell you from my own village.
Do you have clients who are perhaps going to be affected by this?
I don't know yet until they come up. It's possible. When they come up, we'll begin to take it from there, because this order is clearly and manifestly illegal. The federal government cannot assert right over money belonging to state government. The Attorney General has no local standard to be forfeiting bank accounts in which is not a signatory. He has no interest in those money.
Are you against the way and manner the Buhari government is fighting corruption?
Not just against, there's some element of hypocrisy involved in that fight. We support him. But when this government came, we began to x-ray the method and means by which he claimed to be fighting corruption. Number one is selective. Number two, there's no genuine desire to actually fight that corruption. Because like I told you...
Because you also mentioned that when the SGF was suspended, that's someone who was in government, close to government.
Suspension, there was a probe panel that was set up, headed by the vice president. That report has been submitted to the president since he came back. He's gathering dust in Aso Rock, and we'll never see that report until this government probably leaves office.
When you say selective, what again do you mean by that?
It is targeted at people that government perceive as its own opponents. And this is the problem we have. If indeed we fight corruption, the first one is to do charity at home. Let it start with people who are accused of certain allegations within this particular government. Use them as scapegoats. Use them as examples. And then after that, you can then go about outsiders. Okay. Let your charity begin at home.